afternoon, students. Good afternoon, ma'am. All of you sit down. So, students, did you had your food? Yes, ma'am. Then, what all did you learn today? Unity is strength. Any other subjects? Maths. Maths. So, morning session was nice. So, afternoon we are going to learn something related to value. So, children, what do you mean by value? Values like moral. Moral values are there. Moral values means something basic in our life, something which is necessary in our life is known as values, which we need to apply in our life to make our life better. So, students, today we are going to learn about greed. Is greed good for us? No. Why greed is good? Not good for us. Why greed is bad? It will change our attitude. You are right, it will change our attitude. So let's see the term greed through a story. So all of you take your textbook. Please take your textbook. Yes. So you're ready with the textbook. Please listen to it carefully. Greed does harm. One day a woodcutter was cutting wood along the bank of a river. Suddenly he heard a voice from one of the trees. Do not cut me, I shall give you a couch. It will get you whatever you desire, but it will give in double measure to your neighbor. The woodcutter took the couch home. When he asked the count for an amount of rupees 100, it was immediately granted. The count began to fulfill every wish of his. Then he came to know that his neighbor was doubly rewarded. All his happiness left him there. When he demanded a palace for himself, his neighbor was blessed with two palaces. So, please read the book. One day, a woodcutter was cutting wood along the bank of a river. Suddenly, he heard a voice from one of the trees. Do not cut me. I shall give you a count. It will get you whatever you desire, but it will give in double measure to your neighbor. The woodcutter took the conch home. When he asked the conch for an amount of rupees 100, it was immediately granted. The count began to fulfill every wish of his. Then he came to know that his neighbor was doubly rewarded. All his happiness left him then. When he demanded a palace for himself, his neighbor was blessed with two palaces. Then he. So, very good, Arabi. You read the lesson very nicely. Give her a big hand. Okay. Okay, students. Now you read the lesson silently and do mark, tick mark for the familiar words, those which you are words which you are familiar with, and into mark for unfamiliar words. Okay, then do it.
Children, did you finish writing? Finish reading?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So you could have find out some of the difficult words. No?
Yes.
Then tell me some of the difficult words.
Conch,
Count. Then
palace,
palace,
desire,
desire,
mm, this much.
palace means what? King lives where? King lives in the palace. Kottaram we say in Malayalam. So students, now we will look at some of the difficult words in the text. So students, just tell me what's the meaning of desire?
Agra,
Yes, you're right. In Malayalam we say agraham. Then next, what do you mean by count?
Shang,
Yes. Count is shank. Then the meaning of measure?
alavu,
Alav. Yes. Measurement, no? Alav. So you just write this in your notebook. So children, desire means agraham. Count means shankar. Measure means alagar. Is it clear?
yes, ma'am.
Yes. So children, I would like to ask some questions to you. So, why was the woodcutter unhappy with the neighbor?
Because he was a greedy man.
Yes, you're right. Because he was a greedy man. So, students, in this story, there lived a woodcutter, and one day he went into the forest to cut trees. And from one of the trees, a sound was heard that, "Do not cut me. I will give you a couch, and it will fulfill your desire." And thus the woodcutter got a couch. Couch means shankar. So the woodcutter got a couch, and with that couch, what is the peculiarity of that couch? If the woodcutter wished for something, then the double of its measurement would be given to his neighbor. Whatever he desired, the double wish will be granted to his neighbor. That was the peculiarity of the and his neighbor, the woodcutter's neighbor, became so rich. He got one palace instead of two palace. If the woodcutter desired for one palace, then his neighbor would be granted with two palace. If he got rupees 100, his neighbor would get rupees 200, and the double measurements would be given to the neighbor. And because of that, he was so unhappy, and because of he became so greedy that one day he decided to grant to ask the count to grant him to take away his one of his eyes, and one of his eyes was taken away. The woodcutter's one of his eyes, he lost one of his eyes, and his neighbor, both the eyes were lost. and thus the neighbor became blind and he fell into a well, and thus he died. The next day when he woke up, what happened? All his good wealth, all his all his money and all his wealth was gone and he became pauper. That's the story about the greedy woodcutter. So, students, did you understand the lesson?
Yes, ma'am.
Next what we will do, next I will give you one analytical question. Please write it down. The question is, write write the demerits of. So students, please write this, answer this question. So students, did you write the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So tell me some of the demerits of greed.
Um, it creates a sense of anger, revenge in us.
Yes, it creates a sense of anger and revenge in us. When we become greed, we'll automatically get angry for silly things. So students, I would like to bring your attention to some of the points, extra points related to greed. Demerits of greed. Are you able to see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So demerits of greed. Greed enslaves man and causes him grief. Greed ends up in anger, jealousy, and even death. Greed sucks up everything strands of happiness. Greed has unpleasant effects on our lives. Greed destroys human relations. Greed is the outcome of dissatisfaction. Greed destroys people and family. Greed causes you to risk everything. So, in this, which is the most important line, greed sucks up every strand of happiness. It completely destroys our happiness. So, greed is not good for us. So, students, did you understand the demerits of greed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, next we will move on to some follow up activity which you need to do it in your home. The question is, write a paragraph on greed does harm. So, students, you need to write a paragraph on greed does harm. So, students, I think you might have understood the value of today, that is greedless harm. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.